my favorite words, because it's sustain what? As if there is something that got created as a reality that needs to be the same. So it's how to keep the movement of what happens.
Productive dialogue, the
And
generative dialogue going.
Maintaining a positive relationship.
And the relatedness. Can you said something just a moment ago that was, I think, a lead into one of my curiosities these days that we'll talk about more as the conference goes on. You said people are hungry for this because they know that they can all have voice. They all want voice. So there we get the play of everybody having voice, the sort of personal, and yet the relational. And that's what I find to be so significant in my work, is that people who otherwise have been marginalized and not had voice now have a voice, and they may say it's their voice or not, that doesn't really matter, but the containers that get created are safe, and they're inviting, and they're inspiring, and that creates a different collective outcome, or the dialogue happens different. So there's this interesting play of the relational and the everyone should have voice, and I'd love to hear you talk about that a little.
Well, there's an issue about voice, which is hard because, I mean, the whole notion is that everybody has their own private individual self that should be expressed. And that expression and affirmation by others is really important in sort of giving them a sense of having a self. But what it doesn't do is to give a focus to the actual process by which voices come about and appreciation functions to affirm it. That is, the centrality of voice is limited because it still doesn't get at the process by which voice becomes important in the first place. It's like if I want to tell you my story, it's like my story without realizing that whole story, I couldn't have a story like that except out of a whole set of relations. None of these are my words. The very idea of a story is already a tradition that I'm bearing forth in this particular setting, but it looks like it's coming from me and it's my own. And so but you don't see that when you do it, nor do you see that the affirmation is not just listening, it's a whole co-creation which sustains that as something significant. So that gets left out of the ledger. It's like that part that I really somehow want to play up.
So play up as a like for people to have that knowledge as they're in the process of relating, or as a kind of a construct for kind of organizing your voice, how voice emerges.
Yeah. How could we do that? How could that be?
How could you keep the
Not
process
easy.
visible? How could you keep the process visible?
Visible.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right.
And that if I'm having voice, it's not my voice, my personal voice, but if I'm talking and we
All
say
my relations.
it's all my
Yeah.
relations.
Well, Kathy Weingarten talks about voice as the opportunity that exists in a community of listeners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really sort of captures that.
That's nice.
There's another way that Ken often talks about this, is that the voice, in a sense, is an offering to meaning, but it is not in itself meaningful.
Right.
And
Oh, I like that.
meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
Meaningful.
It's sad in some sense, but it's a different theory of communication. That there's the presentation, and then there's the reaction, which becomes then also a presentation, which then becomes the object to be reacted to. So that
Which is lovely in appreciative inquiry, that we can think that the interview and one's sharing the story is an offering toward meaning, but it doesn't stop as we do one interview. It goes into a dialogue, and what I might take from my interview then carries as another offering to meaning in that circle. And then we have those conversations and move into the larger whole group, which is yet another offering
it does
to meaning.
often morph a lot,
And it
that
becomes a kind of this fusion of horizons.
Right,
That's
and then it
correct.
becomes shared meaning for the people who were there.
For that point of
Yeah.
time, and we talk a lot about punctuating it, not saying that is now, but this is where we are for now.
But, built in that process is listening isn't just, the sounds on the ear. And you set up the appreciative inquiry, a setting in which somebody is telling a story, and you're not listening with a critical ear, that is this true or not true, is this logical or not logical? You're living that story as that person. They tell that story, you listen to it as the protagonist, which means you are that person, and that excitement of that story that is yours.
And you leave that dialogue with that story as your story.
It's not your story. Yeah, right.
And that
As
story,
one of your stories.
that story could only have come, had
never-
presence in that conversation because you were there in that relationship with that person at that
Yeah.
particular moment.
And because you asked the question.
Because you asked that question,
Question.
right? But another person, even asking the same question, might have brought
Yeah.
forth that another relationship would brought forth a different kind of
Different
story,
kind of story,
a very
yeah.
different story.
And I wonder, trying to make what we say visible or more apparent of how you came up with that story. I know we ask questions such as, when you're telling us about this experience, tell us who else was involved, how did they contribute to that? You know, and I wonder
Yeah,
that
you might- that would be
at some
interesting.
time we get to that because
That
we
would be like
realize
making visible the whole relational
Yes.
matrix.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And another change that we've made over time, often it was like, so what brought you to this conference? Or we'll say who or what attracted you to the conference. So that again, it starts a relational fabric.
There was a question that we used to use, and I think you brought it up in one of our earlier conferences, who are you bringing with you?
And there's another one, lovely, that's right,
Yeah.
right. And who's supporting you while you're here?
Yeah.
Who else is with, yeah, that's right. So that making visible the relational.
Do you know that,
Are we about to have
We
another
have a meeting in
So,
how many minutes?
would you like to each say a closing comment to thank Max, or just on Max's video, one last sentence, and then we're done?
With the
Please,
beans in your
yeah.
teeth.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share a voice that we hope
Thank
will
you.
be affirmed in some way through you and your friends.
Yeah, I think we can use this video for many ways.
Okay.
I
for
would be
yeah.
curious to be there,
Mm,
to see how the voice that we give here at the table
yeah,
is then received and made meaningful
yeah.
where you take us.
I will share this to all the people here. We put in the Dropbox,
Okay.
and then you use that, and then we will be the speaker of the social
So
consultation.
thank you, Mary and Ken,
Well,
thank you
thank
for
you.
making
Thank
this
you.
time for us.
You
It's
made
fun.
it possible, Diana.
Yeah, I mean, it's so special that you would cut this amount of time
Oh,
out
it's
for us, so thank
been
you,
a
thank
really,
you.
really special.
So,
Yeah.
great.
Amazing.
And this is a very, very nice lunch too.
So,
It was easy for
The only thing I hate is that the pictures of me eating.
We'll go around the world.
Yeah.
Nobody wants, nobody
And-
wants to be seen eating.
Max, are you off? Is the camera off?
Okay, I will do.